You have to have a level of confidence to say no and to advocate for yourself. People are habitual line steppers, meaning some folks feel like I set a boundary and then John ignored it. Well, John's not used to you having boundaries. So you have to keep teaching them that. And there has to be a level of self-confidence, because some people, their goal is to wear you down so you don't have the boundary. And if you don't have the confidence in yourself, you'll get worn down really easy. You'll allow that boundary to be stepped on and then allow people to do more things to you.
This is the Leave It Better podcast, powered by the Side Out Foundation. Here's your host, Hall of Fame coach, Janice Kruger.
Today on Leave It Better, I'm thrilled to have as my guest Dr. Jen Fry, the founder of Jen Fry Talks. Dr. Jen, thanks for being here today. In your own words, can you tell us your background and things that you're working on today?
Yeah, I really appreciate you all having me on this podcast. So to kind of give you all a brief background, I come from college athletics. I'm a college volleyball coach, a college player, and I decided in 2015 to leave to help give folks within athletics, students, coaches, staff, more skill development, because I felt like there wasn't enough skills being done for them, and they were asked to do really hard jobs with 18 to 22-year-olds. So I left. I thought I'd kind of just work at a cultural center, and then a friend of mine said, you should look at becoming a professional speaker. So I did that, did a TED Talk in 2019. Another friend of mine said, you have 2 masters, you can't get a third. So I had to get a PhD. I got my PhD at what I like to say is the best Big Ten school, Michigan State. I got in Sports Geography. I'm probably the only Sports Geographer in the world. And then I graduated in 22. And like most people who graduate with a PhD, you now feel like you have to do something else. So I started a tech company. And Corridor, we set the intersection of group travel and sports tourism and help people manage all the chaos of traveling in a group, as well as find local activities and restaurants easily. And then I pivoted from talking about race and sport to talking about conflict and culture. And so I really help people learn how conflict affects them personally and professionally and can help them grow.
Wow. I am impressed, beyond impressed here. Massive education and such outstanding work that you're doing. In your coaching career, you know, back in those days when you were mentoring those young players over those 15 years that you were coaching, what did you observe about the athletes who learned to advocate for themselves versus those who struggled with self-advocacy?
They had to be willing to be okay with their teammates and whoever else pushing against them, telling them that they're doing the wrong thing. But we tend to see in society right now is if young women advocate for themselves, society around them tells them that they're being too loud, too annoying. Why are they saying something? They're not being nice. And so for young ladies to advocate fiercely, they have to be okay in drowning out the people around them telling them they shouldn't do it. Because if you look at how women are always raised to be quiet. They're always raised to not make any noise, to not make waves. And so you're not only going to have the athlete who is going to, or the athlete's teammates who are going to tell them not to do that. Parents are going to tell them not to do it. Their friends are going to tell them not to do it. They're like, well, just, you don't want to be the person. You don't draw attention to yourself. And so they have to combat those type of things to be able to fiercely self-advocate for themselves. It's not just the person that they're pushing against. They also have to push the other voices around them that are telling them not to do it.
Wow. Yeah. I think I just started reading a book that you authored here. I Said No, How to Have a Backbone and Boundaries Without Being a Jerk, Dr. Jen Fry. I believe some of the things I've read so far, and I just haven't gotten very far, it talks about believing in yourself to some degree here.
Yeah. I think in today's world, there are so many factors that will try and keep women from believing in themselves. I mean, so much. A person will decide to try something new. And I think the problem that many people don't realize is that when you try something new, you're going to be god awful. Like you're going to be so awful at it. Janice, you and I were talking about pickleball beforehand, and I'm a pretty athletic person. And so I was like, let me try this. I know I'm going to be athletic. I'm not going to know anything of what I'm going to do, but at least I feel like the athleticism is going to overtake. And I will say my athleticism overtook it. I didn't know how to keep score. I didn't know the rules, but I'm going to be an athlete, damn it, out there. And for that, some people would have been so uncomfortable being bad that they wouldn't even try it. I mean, and I purposely went to the courts where people were way better, because that's the only way you're going to learn. Like, I'm not going to be on courts where people are subpar. I have to learn with being around people that are better. And that means I was consistently getting my butt whooped. And I didn't take it personal. I didn't get upset. I was like, well, that's part of learning. If I want to be the best at something, I'm going to have to take a lot of losses. Like, there's a comedian, his name is Kev on Stage, and he says that your wins are built on top of a whole pile of losses.
Yeah.
And you still have to keep up self-confidence when you're losing a lot, because to be the best at whatever it is, you're going to have a lot of losses. And so for me, I look at self-confidence is you're like, I'm self-confident, even in the factor of taking a lot of losses, even in the factor of things not going my way, even in the factors of like people say my ideas are bad, even like whatever it is, I'm still self-confident. Now, I'm not saying I'm not taking feedback or being coached. That's a different segment, but to be able to keep getting up, and even when people don't agree or push back, I'm still confident in who I am and what I'm doing. And I kind of attach that to the book, because you have to have a level of confidence to say no and to advocate for yourself. People are habitual line steppers, meaning some folks feel like I set a boundary and then John ignored it. Well, John's not used to you having boundaries. So you have to keep teaching them that. And there has to be a level of self-confidence, because some people, their goal is to wear you down so you don't have the boundary. And if you don't have the confidence in yourself, you'll get worn down really easy. You'll allow that boundary to be stepped on, and then allow people to do more things to you.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I love that. And I have read that in your book as well. I'm watching volleyball right now. There's been some pretty incredible matches going on. And I think what I have been most impressed over the last 5 to 10 years, maybe, is the self-confidence that I see. And I don't know if I'm just putting that out there or if that's real confidence that's coming into play. Do you think athletes are speaking up for the needs that they have more now?
That's a good question. I don't know if they're speaking up more or there's more ways for us to see them speaking up. Because I'll take it back. When I played volleyball, I mean, this was 25 years ago. Social media didn't exist. Cell phones didn't exist. I think I got my first cell phone maybe like 2020. You couldn't take pictures. You just called, and you did not texting like wasn't even a thought, because it took so long to generate a sentence, right? So like the mediums, and then also it was many of the games weren't really recorded. And also there would be like news articles. So people had to wait for articles to come out. Now everything happens there's always a notification or some type of news source always when it happens. And so there's so many more ways now to see that people are speaking out. Social media, email, texting, alerts, like there's so much. So I don't know if they're speaking out more or if there's just more ways for us to see them speaking out, and that with NIL, they just have more power to say things to protect themselves. So it kind of might be a combination, because, when I played, there wasn't power up until about 2015. It was the coach got to decide if athletes transferred and where they transferred. And so if Janice wanted to transfer, they first had to go talk to their coach, and then their coach could say yes or no. And then if the coach did say yes, the coach could literally have a long list and be like, okay, well, let me look at my schedule up till 2028. So you can't play this team. You can't play this team. We might see them in the tournament. So you can't play this team. Here's a list of 5 teams that you could play for. And so now there's just more power in being able to transfer when they want, having money with NIL. So they're bringing money with them. And there's more opportunities on social media and other mediums for them to be heard. So I think it's a kind of a combination of that, perhaps.
Yeah. I really, truly enjoyed the volleyball that was on this past weekend. And there definitely was a lot of social media going on.
Well, that's all there's going to be.
Everything. Yeah. Always. Yeah. You've written some about experiences as a Black female volleyball player competing in Europe. How did those players learn to navigate unfamiliar systems? And that's really for everybody, and advocate for themselves. What parallels do you see with patients entering complex medical systems?
I would say I didn't play overseas, but my research was on the racial experiences of professional Black female volleyball players in Europe.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to that, one of the biggest things that I felt like people needed to know was that they needed to have a more transparency about what they were going to be stepping into. I think what we tend to see on social media is that people see kind of the very sexy of playing overseas, but they don't know what the real aspect of it, what to ask questions about, what to challenge, how to advocate for themselves of what their needs are, how to ask, to make sure your agent is advocating for you and getting the contract in English and getting what you're paid and what you're needing and all of those things. And that's where I see a lot of people kind of have the biggest issue is that they don't know what they don't know and they have to go through a year of learning. And that tends to make them not want to come back and play overseas. So that was one of the biggest reasons. I will say some of the parallels in terms of with what you all do is that athletes overseas, because they're overseas in a foreign country, sometimes don't know the language, are very uncomfortable advocating for themselves. And there was one athlete that talked about how she had a hurt knee and the doctor came and looked at it and said it was fine. And then she got a call at like 12 a.m. And whoever this anonymous person was said that it was that whoever they spoke to wasn't a doctor, was a dentist, and that they needed to get another person a second opinion. And so I think where that kind of falls when we talk about medicine and women advocating for themselves is being willing to get a second opinion, be willing to push back against what a doctor says, be willing to some extent to do your own research. I think it can be dangerous doing too much research, but I think there is a point where you should be doing research so that you also understand some stuff. So I think that there is some of those parallels in being able to advocate for themselves when going to the doctor and dealing with really hard stuff. Yeah.
The language barrier definitely is something to unfamiliar places everywhere. So both athletes and metastatic patients often face moments where they're just challenged with authorities, figures, coaches, maybe doctors, as you're just talking about, medical teams. What advice would you give them about approaching these conversations effectively? So you just gave some examples of that happening. Would there be things that you would suggest that they do to effectively work in that?
Yeah, I would say to leave your feelings out. And what I mean by that is that what I tend to see is that a lot of people come up and they'll say, well, this is how I'm feeling. And what I mean by that is if you're saying, well, I feel like you don't like me, I feel like this, that's not going to help anything. And that's sometimes going to put people on the defensive. What is it you want when you go into this meeting? Are you saying that you want to play more? You saying that you feel like the coach doesn't like you is not going to get you more playing time. And so instead to say, I'd like to talk about what I need to do to get more playing time. What skills do I need to work on? What parts of my game do I have a blind spot to? Those are things of having actual quantitative questions that you can get information out of. Because if an athlete comes up to their coach and says, well, I feel like you don't like me, well, what am I supposed to do with that information? What is the end result of it? Is it that you're saying, I feel like whenever you talk to me, you're very short, you're condescending, you don't answer my questions, you feel you don't have time for me? That's a very different conversation that gives actionable items versus saying, I feel like you don't like me. Right? That's the type of thing I'm saying is that give things that they see behaviors that they could change. And then again, when you go and talk to the doctor and you're advocating for yourself, what is it that you want? What behaviors do you want to see change? What information do you not feel like you're getting? The conversation with your doctor can be, I feel like you don't have time for my questions. I feel like you're not answering them fully. I feel like you're not taking time to actually articulate what the problem is. Those are things that now we can talk about those actual specific instances versus saying I feel like you're just not there. I just feel like, right? Understanding language is so important to get what your needs are met.
Yeah, I can see where, people trying to go into that just maybe lack that self-confidence and belief that it is okay to be your own advocate there and to get answers to questions that are there with you. You don't have to leave there and not know what you want to know.
Yeah, because if you're not advocating for yourself, who is? Like that's, I think, for a lot of women, if you're sitting here waiting for someone to advocate for you, you're going to be waiting a long time. And also, why should I advocate for you if you're not going to? If you're the person who this is going to affect 100% is not advocating for yourself, why should I be coming in with my cape on my trusty horse to advocate for you? You're putting way too much pressure on that other person. And that's what we see. Like that's, my mom would do that type of thing. Her and my sister, she would always have me asking questions to my sister. I'm like, you ask them. Why do you need this third person? And that's what we tend to see with women, is that they will always need to have a third person handle their conflict, advocate for them. Well, no, you go ask for this. No, like never, ever should that happen. If you're not willing to ask for it or put yourself on the line, don't expect someone else to. I think that's unacceptable. You should be willing to put it on the line and even risk the consequence if you expect someone else to.
If you're having that conversation with somebody and you're telling them that, and they're still a little hesitant in feeling comfortable and confident to do that, what are some strategies of things that they might be able to do that will help them be able to tackle that situation for themselves?
You will never feel confident unless you start trying it. You can't. How can I feel confident driving an 18-wheeler if I'm not even going to try? Right. Am I supposed to just get on the highway and feel confident driving an 18-wheeler? I've never done it before. That's the thing. And that's the hard part about advocating for yourself, is you will not feel confident unless you start doing it. Start doing micro advocacy, where maybe you're at a restaurant and they bring the wrong food and you're like, actually, I ordered French fries instead of mashed potatoes. Do small things. Advocate for yourself. If your friend is like, can we go to this restaurant and you hate seafood? Say no. I don't want to go and have seafood. I'd rather go to this restaurant, which has seafood and chicken. But doing small advocacy can help you out. But that's the thing about it is that you're never going to feel comfortable unless you do it. Never, ever, ever. You can't expect people to feel comfortable if they're not doing it. And so that's where you have to get used to it, is how does it feel when you advocate for yourself? How does your body feel? Are you stressed, sweating, anxious? Like, what does all of that stuff feel like in the moment? Because then you can start paying attention to it and seeing, okay, I know whenever I go to advocate for myself, I start to get really nervous and I blank out. So let me have a little notepad with the things I want to hit on. Yeah. So then you start to pay attention to things that you need to do, but you have to do the work in order for to start feeling comfortable.
Yeah. Just take a breath, give a second, a little time is all right.
Yep.
And then come back with it. Awesome. Volleyball requires mental toughness and the ability to bounce back from setbacks. How can metastatic patients cultivate the same resilience while learning to advocate for themselves?
They got to give themselves grace. Like, what they're going through is hard. It's so hard. It's so brutal. They have got to give themselves grace. They have got to give themselves grace, knowing that they might not feel like getting up and cutting the grass. They might not feel like making dinner. There's just things that they're not going to feel like doing. And that's okay. There's so many times, especially when you have these patients that have kids, is that they feel like they have to be at every sporting event and every practice. You don't. Your kids are going to grow up healthy and happy. And even if you didn't attend every single thing, I grew up with a single mom who maybe attended 50% of my stuff. And that's okay. On the road, I learned how to advocate for myself, how to manage my money, that type of thing. And I think parents now feel like, and society has told them that they are bad parents if they are not attending every single thing that involves their kid. Like, what? You didn't go to the one practice for 15 minutes and sit there and watch? It couldn't have been me. I need to be at every single thing. No, you don't. And that's a part of it. If you want to heal, then you have to pick your battles. And a part of advocating is picking your battle. A battle is not you schlepping all your crap to go watch your kid at a 20-minute tryout. That is not worth your time. And so that's the thing, I think, is that if you're going to advocate for yourself, you got to save your time, your breath, your feelings to the important stuff. And that means that some of the stuff you're just going to say, I don't have time for, I can't do. And that's okay, because what you're going through is hard enough. And the pressures of being a parent, an employee, with all of that is going to make it difficult. And so give yourself grace to know that you can't do everything at this point. And even if you can, you need that energy to just take care of yourself.
Yeah. In this day and age with club volleyball, where the parents are at everything and everything. And just like, that's not how I grew up. My parents were at nothing. And, you just fend for yourself. And
yes.
I think I turned out all right. It was an okay thing. That happened,
I'm from Arizona. I would take the Greyhound bus up to NAU volleyball camp. My mom never registered me for camp. My mom, I played Pop Warner football. My mom didn't even register. I literally took myself over there to register. Like, I've been so independent. And I think the problem is that like parents feel like they have to be at everything. You have the damn kid's location. Like, where they're at. You got Life 360, a Tile, Apple thing. You have them microchipped. Like, everything about them. And so I say that to say if like there was a camp in Colorado Springs that a friend was doing, and these parents literally pulled up, put their chair out to watch, and the club director, the camp director was like, "What are you doing here?" They were like, "Have you ever been to Colorado Springs?" And they said, "No." And the camp director, he literally was like, "Go, you have 4 days, go and tour around Colorado Springs. You do not need to be in this gym." And so I say that to any parent that's listening, stop it. You don't have to be at everything. You don't you want your kid to be independent human beings. And that means that independent human beings is that you take time off. If they're at camp, you should be going and doing something you want to do. That's my tangent for that.
Did they listen?
Yeah.
Did they get up and listen?
They did. And so he was telling me, because he was laughing, because like the last day they came back and they were like, "We're sorry, we just don't have anything else to do, which is why we came back." And he was like, okay, you at least did it. But they're like, we ran out of stuff to do. We did it all. And he was like, good. But like, I just am shocked when these parents are in these facilities and it's like, you have 4 days of sun, go away, go eat. Same thing with that volleyball tournaments. I'm sorry, but I really think like you don't need to be there the whole time. Go do something, come back for a game. Like, you can support your kids in different ways. It doesn't mean that your presence is there 24 hours a day. And breast cancer patients who are going through it, you don't have to be in that cold gym. If your kid and the people around don't understand that you are taking care of yourself, that's a bigger issue.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a great lesson when they do talk to them and they say, "Hey, I'm going to go do this for me." And it's a good thing. And they can learn that side of it as well. Mm-hmm. If you could give metastatic breast cancer patients just 3 pieces of advice drawn from your athletic and coaching experience, what would they be?
3 pieces of advice is that one is to realize that when you look back, you are stronger than you ever realized you would be. Because I think about when I'm coaching athletes and they're going through so much hard stuff. It might not be playing. It might either they moved away, they might have family problems, and they're navigating through it. And so I think the first piece of advice I'd say is that, like, to realize that you're going to be stronger going through it than you realize, because you got a lot to deal with. So I think that's the first thing. I think the second piece would be for them to take breaks when they can. When you work with college athletes, they want to do everything with everybody. They want to go to every party, every event, just everything. And it just exhausts them. And so they need to take breaks. That it's okay if you sit at home and just don't do anything. I travel so much. And it's funny when people will be like, "Well, where do you go on vacation?" My house, my couch with my cat. That is my vacation. And so I would tell them that, just like with coaching, that your athletes need breaks. The athletes need to understand that they need to, and I also, let me preface, I'm a horrible sleeper. I go to sleep really late. But like, when you're in the throes of going through cancer, when you're going through really hard things, you're going to have to give your body rest, and to be okay with resting, that things that maybe you always could do before, you just can't do. And the same thing with the athletes. They come from high school and club ball, which is very different than college ball. The expectations on your body, the mental expectations, when you come to college, every aspect of your life has been turned over. Where you drive, if you bring a car, where you park, your teachers. You don't know any. You go from being a senior and knowing every single teacher, staff, custodian to nobody. And depending on the size of where you're at, you go from walking around, parking your car in your cool senior spot to now you got to take the bus. And you're sitting there with your bus notes. If I take the 5 to the 8, if I got to be there, like, nothing, where you live, how to get into your building, what you eat, where to eat. Everything is different. And you got to give yourself some just room to take rest on your body because you need respite. And I think kind of the third piece of advice when we talk about paralleling athletics or the athletes I would coach and breast cancer patients would probably be to be willing to lean on people, because I've had friends that go through breast cancer and some of them tell everyone, and I'm flying up there to take them to doctor's appointments or to get surgery. And some of them don't want to tell anyone. And I would just say, be willing to lean on people and have the conversation. You'll immediately learn who your real friends are. You'll immediately learn the people that are going to be by your side when you go through this. And that's what you want, is to know who you can lean on so you can start leaning on them. Same thing when you're in coaching, when you're playing, is that you're going to go through hard stuff. You go from being the top in your team, your school, your state, to maybe you're sitting the bench. And that's going to be really hard. So you have to be able to lean on people to talk through it versus just to isolate and go into your own little hole.
Yeah. The one benefit, speaking of going to school and being on a volleyball team or being on a team of some kind, whatever that is you do have immediate people that are somewhat in your sphere, which is somewhat helpful, but you still do have a lot of unknowns that you have to, like, doing your own laundry.
Yeah. 100%. You have so much more help in ways that you don't realize when you're on the team. And it's not just the team, it's the staff around to help you and also the ancillary people around. Sure. Right? If you get injured on a team, you got the trainer that can go pick up your medicine. You got the person that can drive you to your dorm. Like, you have just so many other options. When you're by yourself, you just got to figure a lot of the stuff out, and that makes it hard. And that's why I always tell people, like, you got to lean on people, and you got to see if they're willing to take your weight and who is willing to take your weight. Mm-hmm.
And don't be afraid to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, you might make a mistake, right? What happens if you lean to somebody and that just didn't work out? How do you manage that? How do you deal with that? Just move on.
You realize their place in your life. One thing about being a professional speaker and having my own company, the thing I like the most, it allows me to support my friends in ways I would never be able to do when I coach. Never. So I had a friend who had breast cancer. I was able to fly up and spend a week with her and take her to surgery and to be there and to go to appointments with her and to take notes. I had another friend, same thing. I could fly down for just a 20-minute appointment just to be there. Like, it allowed me to support my friends in ways that I could never do in coaching. And so I always tell them, like, you'll be surprised at the friends that will be willing to support you if you just let them. Mm-hmm. And you have to be willing to let them, right? Who's going to be willing to make a meal train for you? Who's going to be willing to help you out? And it can suck because sometimes it might make you reevaluate your relationship with someone, that the person you thought would be there and could handle weight wasn't. And that really hurts. And then you get to decide what that relationship looks like moving forward. Mm-hmm. Conflict is a mental health imperative. And the more you stay away from conflict, the more you're going to negatively affect your mental health. And we are taught in this society to be very conflict avoidant, right? If you go to Germany, Germans will tell you with no problem what's going on. And us as Americans are like, oh my God, they're honest. To me, conflict is a mental health imperative. And so the thing I would tell them is that the more you try and stay away from it, you're just affecting yourself. You're affecting your relationships. You're affecting your position as a leader. You're affecting your health. You're affecting everything. And so I think that's the biggest thing about it, is that it can feel really scary when you've never been involved in conflict. It can feel really scary where the only examples you have of it is people yelling, screaming, crying, or ignoring. It can feel really, really hard. And it's for you to be better for yourself is to figure out how to be better in conflict, how to better manage your relationships with it, because it's a mental health imperative. And the more you just ignore it, it's just going to blow up and be even worse.
Do you think is your book, I Said No, going to have some help to try to make that a learning device for people?
Yeah, because I give examples that many people don't realize that they have more control of and affects their mental health. Like there's one chapter that says you don't get to say no. And in the chapter, I talk about how a person I know was waiting to go to an event. And they were waiting on a friend to take them. And they said, I want to be at the event was an hour and a half drive. And they told their friend, I want to leave by 5:15. Well, 5:15 comes and goes. 5:20 comes and goes. 5:30 comes and goes. 5:40. And I say, well, why haven't you left that? Well, my friend's on the way. I'm like, okay. You said you wanted to leave 25 minutes ago. Yeah, but they're on the way. They say they're close. 5:40 leaves. 5:50 leaves. And the person finally gets there at 6 o'clock. And I asked, I said, well, what are you going to do? And they were like, well, I'll just be mad and talk to them in the car. And I was like, you could have left. You chose to wait on them. You weren't handcuffed to the chair and you chose to wait for them. So I said, you don't get to be mad that you made the choice. You could have gotten in your car and left to the event, but you chose to wait for them. And now you're making it a uncomfortable situation for everyone, because now you're going to get in the car. And we've all done this. I've done it. You get in the car and you slam the door and you're like, why are you late? And you're sitting there complaining. You could have left. You have the tickets. Mm-hmm. And so that's an example of you don't get to be mad. If you're staying and waiting for this person, which is 45 minutes after you want to leave, you don't get to be upset. You made the choice. And you might not want to admit that you made the choice, but you made the choice to stay because they were on the way. And you did not want to risk them being upset and be like, well, I'm already driving. So you didn't want to risk that versus you saying, I get that you're on the way, but we agreed upon a time. You're way too late for me to feel comfortable. I'm leaving.
Yeah.
And deal with people are going to be upset with that. And I have a friend who is habitually late, hours late.
Ooh.
And I've come to realize, oh my gosh. And there are things sometimes we'll go to restaurants where they have a 90-minute, where you only get to sit there for 90 minutes. And the first time he was 30 minutes late. And I said, I will never invite you to this place again if you're going to be late. I'm not asking you to be on time all the time. And so now whenever we go to that, he will be on time.
He's on time.
Because it's that important. Because I told him I will not, I literally will not invite you to this.
That's a boundary.
So it's a boundary. I'm not going to say you can be late or not. I just will not invite you and you get to decide. And so having those type of conversations, is it hard? Yeah, but I'm not going to allow that to happen because now, again, it's a mental health imperative. I am pissed off. The show, the event, the game that I was so excited to watch, I cannot watch it with enjoyment because I'm so pissed off because we're late. Hey, right? Janice, think about it. Yeah. I wanted to be there at 6:30. Well, now I'm not going to get there till 6:45, which means parking's harder. We might have to pay more. We have to be further away. If the event started, some events, they start at 6:30. So you're walking in, you can't get your popcorn or whatever it is. You got to sprint to your seat. You're late. You've missed 10 minutes. Now, you're pissed the whole time. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
No.
Mm-mm. Yeah. Well, I find your ability to tell a story and your creativeness in this book that I just started reading is really entertaining. And I think it's a great book. And I want to thank you for being here today. And if there's any last thing you'd like to say to let people know where they can find information about you, maybe see, I know you've done some TED Talks.
Yep.
But just to listen to your show, where would you tell them they should go?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So Jen Fry talks on all social media. I have a podcast called 5 with Fry where I go over 5 minutes or 5 topics or something. And you can go also on the website to find my book. I would say it's a book for anyone to read. I think it's something to give for a gift. You can buy on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And if you're interested in getting an autographed book with my Herbie Hancock, you can also purchase it through there. But those are the best ways. And if you're looking to bring someone in to help people learn how to be more conflict literate and learn how to facilitate tough conversations, contact me.
Yeah. And I think the work that you do is really wonderful. And thanks for sharing yourself here today with us. And maybe we'll see you on the road at a volleyball match, possibly?
Yes.
Do you attend? Yes. Okay. Thank you, Jen, for being here.
Yep, absolutely. I appreciate you, Janice.
Thank you for listening. Please share your feedback with us at side-out.org.